Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Doing
Yourself?
well. So I know I've already introduced you, but can you please go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Christell Foote. I am competing in Miss Tennessee USA in exactly 2 weeks today. I'm very excited, and I will be representing my great state as Miss Rocky Top USA.
So I have very little knowledge about Tennessee. Where is Rocky Top?
Yes. So actually, the University of Tennessee, the slogan is kind of "Go Vols, Go Rocky Top." And someone that grew up a little bit of a Vol fan, I just felt well represented saying that I was Miss Rocky Top. And so when looking at titles, that was something that I was definitely interested in. But it's more Eastern Tennessee region.
Okay, good to know. So you
Yeah,
just mentioned that Miss Tennessee USA is in 2 weeks from today. How are you feeling?
I'm excited. I'm a returner, I'm a veteran, and every year I keep, climbing a little bit closer to bringing home the crown. And I think more than anything, I just feel excitement and anticipation at this point.
Because you placed in top 5 last year, correct?
Yes, I was second runner up last year.
Ooh. What drove you to want to compete again in Miss Tennessee USA this year?
I think I really want to share the message of resilience and not giving up. Like this has been a dream of mine since I was a little girl before I was even eligible to compete in the Miss division and getting to that Miss USA stage. So someone I really look up to is Deshauna Barber, Miss USA 2016. She tried 7 times before winning her state title, right? So this will be my 5th year going back, and hopefully it'll be the year, but if not, I still won't give up on my dream.
So, as a contestant, you have the ability to compete in 2 different states. You have the ability to compete in, I believe, Georgia and Tennessee. So, what advice do you have for somebody that does have the ability to compete in 2 different states that maybe doesn't know what choice to make as to which state to compete in?
Yeah, I think Noelia is a great example of that. Of course, her going from Alabama to Utah and then, of course, winning nationals this past year. And I think at the end of the day, like I said, if you have that dream, keep chasing it. If you have the eligibility to do 2 states, why not? They made that rule for a reason. They want girls to be able to be a part of the system and participate to that. And I think for me, I'm very grateful to have 2 opportunities, but I'm hoping, of course, that one trial get the job done.
I can totally understand that. So, with you being able to compete in 2 states, would you ever compete in Georgia?
I would, yes, because timing wise, Tennessee does come first. And like I said, hoping that I would have only one try this year. But Georgia is more than 90 days after Tennessee. And with that rule change with the organization, I think it's a great opportunity to why not try?
There you go. So, you've been competing since you were a teen. You competed in Tennessee Teen USA. What do you wish you had known, before competing in teen, and then what do you wish you had known before competing in Miss?
Mm-hmm. So I competed in teen the year of the 2018 year when Sophie Rosenstein won, and that was my first pageant ever. I walked into it not knowing a single thing, and I literally wore a untailored suit from the mall that I picked up the week before to these beautiful girls wearing Sherry Hill cocktail dresses, walking into their interview room. And to myself, as a teen, right, I'm just happy that I showed up being my authentic version of myself, not having too much pressure on myself. And I would tell any teen entering into the Miss Teen USA organization to do that. Don't overcoach, be authentic to yourself. You're still learning and growing into the young woman that you are. So don't go overcoached as a teen. As a miss, I'm happy I went in with coaching and experience to know, okay, this is the big rig now, right? If you win this, you go to nationals, you go to Miss USA, the big dream at the end of the day. And so I would say just make sure you're prepared, right? Don't show up not knowing what you're getting yourself into if you want to get those results that you try so hard to get.
Makes sense. So, you are 2 weeks out. What do you feel currently? Do you feel like you're prepared? Do you feel like you have that, experience and coaching that you're ready to walk into it?
Yes, I think, every year you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect the same results, right? So I've made little tweaks, this year, looking at my walk a little differently and posing on stage, have a new gown this year, new wardrobe is always exciting to have that refresh of confidence. And I think overall interview every year, you can only improve on yourself and with your preparation in that sense of, like I said, I don't want to be overcoached, but I want to make sure that I feel well prepared.
What's something that you are most looking forward to going into Miss Tennessee USA this year?
There's a lot of familiar faces there for me, it being my home state growing up there, and I'm excited to see some of the girls and reconnect with them and seeing them in person.
And so kind of going back to the ability to compete in two states, you're going to compete in Tennessee first. And, hopefully that's the only competition you need to go to this year. But if you do have to, or if you do end up going to compete in Georgia, some people don't exactly love or support the idea of girls competing in two different states or that switch states in pursuit of the crown. And, you've said that, do what you can to get to what your goal is. But, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great opportunity. I like to see it, like you said, as meeting your goals, your personal goals. And I think this organization really is about women empowerment at the end of the day. So whatever makes you feel the most empowered, I think to hit your goals, you should do that. Of course, I understand some people may see it as crown chasing, but like I said, the end goal is to make a bigger difference in the world. And if you can do that in two different states, then why not?
So why the Miss USA organization?
I love what they stand for. Over the years, the tagline has changed. Now it's the definition of pageantry and what it means to you. But it was a pageant always growing up. I remember I was in first grade, second grade. That's what I watched every year on TV with my mom. Even beyond that, the Miss Universe pageant. And I just told myself I wanted to be one of those girls one day on that stage.
So you walked into teen having never competed in a pageant before and did extremely well, and now you've done extremely well as a Miss. What do you think stands out about you differently than other contestants?
Well, physically, I'm 6'4", and when I walk into a room, it definitely probably makes an impression. But I think with that, my self-worth and what I portray, that the words that come out of my mouth during my interview, I hope make an impact. I don't want to leave a room without someone thinking that I can't make a change in the world, and I hope I convey that every time I interview.
What do you, if you were to finish the sentence, I want to be remembered for, what would the end of that sentence be?
I would want to be remembered for not being your average title holder. At the end of the day, all of us have a job to represent our communities as title holders, but I want to go above and beyond that and see a change and know that I made a lasting footprint in my community.
So with walking in 2 weeks, what are you focusing on with the message you have and the platform that you bring to the title?
Mm-hmm. So the Miss USA organization has had a lot of changes the past year, 2 years, honestly, and with leadership changes, the taglines, everything of that some sort. And with that, it's been a lot more inclusive, right? Now you can have married women, divorced women, pregnant women, transgender women, any of that kind compete, any woman. And I think those changes come with, it's not your average pageant anymore, right? And so I want to convey that I'm not your average title holder, I'm not your average woman. And with that, I want to go above the average, above and beyond, and make sure I'm representing the organization well. This role has become more of a brand ambassador. Yes, I'm advocating for social issues close to my heart, but also, you're representing the brand, the Miss USA brand, and what that means.
So what are those social issues that are close to your heart?
Definitely education. And, in Tennessee and Georgia, actually, there's the Hope Scholarship, and it is funded by the state lottery system. So a lot of students in both Tennessee and Georgia, I feel like, don't utilize this scholarship. In Tennessee specifically, you can go to a 2-year, 4-year, or 4-year institution or a trade school for free with certain test scores out of high school. And I think this is a great opportunity to, receive higher education and not go into student debt, and a great opportunity for the youth in our state.
So is it something that's just not publicized enough? Like, what to you is the stoppage point for students to not utilize this program?
I think a lot of people don't realize that it is really simple to apply for this scholarship. They think like, oh, is my ACT score high enough? But really, it's not a big testing boundary. It's not a very high GPA boundary. They really want to make it accessible to people. I think it's just that extra push of getting people to realize that higher education shouldn't be this scary thing. It should open doors for you, be another career stepping path. And I think it's just the first step of actually applying to it and making all the youth in high schools know that this is a very accessible program.
Interesting. I'm not from either one of those states, so I really have no clue about any of that. But that is a really amazing program to know that if you have the right test scores and if you have the right, thought process behind it, no matter who you are, you can achieve a higher education.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a title holder, how do you plan on kind of being that spokesperson? Have you already started the conversation with, your local, I guess, is it government authorities that you would be speaking to about, that are publicizing it? What's the process for that?
Yeah, there's a lot of different avenues. Personally, for me, there are 7 career technical student organizations in the state of Tennessee that focus on career technical education, which is, it could go anything from like marketing and business. And those organizations look like DECA and FBLA. They have a lot of academic competitions, but then on the other side of it, there's FCCLA, HOSA with healthcare, all these different, they're called, like I said, career technical student organizations. And I think advertising the Hope Scholarship through these student organizations where there's already driven students, competing in these academic competitions and letting them know, hey, you could do this beyond college. And there's actually a lot of resources and financial aid to get you to these career roles is an awesome opportunity for the youth in Tennessee.
That's awesome. So kind of thinking about who you are and that you aren't an average title holder and you want to present these non-average organizations and other achievements that young people can make, what's the biggest misconception people might have about you?
Wow. Honestly, I think I juggle a lot of hats, right? And I have a full-time corporate job. I speak within the DECA organization in Tennessee because I held a previous leadership title when I was in high school and stayed involved while I was in college. And now, as a functioning adult, I balance all these hats, like I said, and I want people to know that, I am doing it all. And that it's possible to do it all. And that's why, in pageantry, I want to show that and be a title holder and show people, hey, you can be organized and accomplish all your dreams at the same time.
With all of what you're doing and that this is the 5th year competing, has there ever been a time where you've wanted to give up?
I wouldn't say give up. I would say definitely there's that point of reflection the week or two after the pageant where you have that downtime where you're like, wow, like, why didn't they choose me? What did I not do good enough that you just doubt yourself? And I think those first couple weeks after the pageant, you have to really pick yourself back up and say like, and remind yourself the true reasons that you're competing. And, at the end of the day, the girl that is chosen that gets to take home the crown, she's a representation of the class of all the girls competing. I can find a little bit of myself in her and support her during her reign. And I really like to remind myself of that because, it's not always about the crown, right? Like I said, I want to be an advocate for young women. And at the end of the day, that Miss Tennessee title holder that was chosen is doing that. And I need to be happy for her and remind myself that I can try again next year.
You can, and now there's not an age limit, so you can keep trying if you want to. So kind of in that same thought vein of you can see yourself in the young woman that is this, I guess, class representative, that Miss US Tennessee USA, for maybe the people that are going to be looking up to you as the one that is representing that class. How would your closest friends describe you, and maybe what could others find, themselves seeing in you?
Mm-hmm. Definitely loyal and resilient. I've been loyal to this organization for the past 7 years, and that's for a reason because I don't want to be this crown chaser going organization. I really do align with the Miss USA organization's values and want to continue riding with them, and fulfilling that dream. But I think loyal and then, like I said, resilient. I haven't given up and I don't plan on it.
Is there something that you hope will be different about your performance this year that maybe will give you that foot up or that leg up and make the difference in becoming, second runner up to becoming the title holder?
I think in an interview, it's all about vulnerability, right? And relatability. I want the judges, I want to convey to them that, I want to be a relatable title holder that will go out into our state and connect with communities all over the state and see myself as an equal, not someone that just wears this sash and can think that I can accomplish anything without reaching out to people in my community because I need them. It's a very selfless role being a title holder. And I think that's a misconception sometimes, like we have things that we're passionate about and that we want to be advocates for, but at the end of the day, we are serving others. And that's something I definitely want to convey during my year.
Is there anything in particular that you hope to accomplish as Miss Tennessee USA? I know you've spoken about really promoting the Hope Scholarship, but overarching wise, is there maybe one specific goal that you have?
I mean, it would be really nice to win Miss USA. But besides that, on a state level still, definitely I think advocating for the Hope Scholarship would be my number one thing. But I would love to so I currently live in Middle Tennessee, but grew up in East Tennessee, and really just getting back to my Knoxville community. And that's where my roots are, right? That's where I have friends and family there and mentors, and making sure I'm giving back to the Knox County school systems and everything they did for me while I was being shaped as a young woman through their school systems. And, I just want to make a difference throughout the whole state. So making connections in West Tennessee. I really think of Tennessee as in three regions, right? East Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, West Tennessee, all known for different things too, right? East Tennessee has the beautiful mountains. Middle Tennessee is known for the honky tonks on Broadway. And West Tennessee has the best barbecue you'll ever have in your life in Memphis. So yes, you'll have to visit. But I think, making sure all parts of Tennessee I go and represent well and make those new connections.
Now I really do need to go. I love barbecue, so add that to my checklist of things I need to get done in just the next year alone. And I love that there's 3 different regions. I am from Colorado, and so we don't kind of have that same thought process. We have the West Slope and we have the Eastern Slope, and they compete.
Yeah.
They do not get along, which we'll attempt to fix eventually. But as somebody that is going to be able to say, I represent all 3 areas or all 3 sections of Tennessee, I think it's really cool that you know so much about each of them and you're able to speak to what they have done for you as a title holder. What do you see as, something that you can do in each of those regions? I know you just spoke about, you can speak to what the Knoxville school system has done for you, and now you live in central, central Tennessee. What is there one specific thing that you think you can accomplish or that you can do in each of those regions?
Yeah, I think that through my involvement with the DECA organization, one of those career technical student organizations, I have really connected with a bunch of different high school teachers through that, and making sure I'm going to different school county systems throughout the state and advocating for the Hope Scholarship and making sure like these high school seniors are staying involved and knowing about this scholarship and that it is accessible to them. So I'll use those connections that I already have. And, with the Sash and Crown, you definitely will meet new people and you again, hopefully be able to make more connections to go to different high schools around the state to talk to these students.
That would be a lot of fun, and you would definitely get a lot of good traveling in and probably find all of the different barbecue as you do.
Yes.
And then you have to report back because now I'm going to have to go find all of it.
Yeah.
The Miss USA organization announced that Miss USA this year is going to be in Hollywood, California, the birthplace, the home of Miss USA. What was your reaction to finding out that Miss USA is going to be in Hollywood this year?
Oh, it's so exciting. I mean, what a surreal moment, It's like the roots of the organization, and being able to go back there if I were to win this state title would be just such an amazing opportunity, because I feel like all dreams come true in Hollywood. So for whoever does win Miss USA this August 4th, I think the date was, it's going to be an amazing experience.
Were you surprised at the big date change going, from more September, October date all the way up to end of July?
Yes, because I don't know everything that goes on behind the scenes, of course, right? But before COVID times, Miss USA was always around May every year. So I've noticed I feel like they're pushing it back a little bit more and more every year to get back to pre-COVID times. So it definitely was a shock, though. You know, a lot of girls that are going to be crowned in June have a quick turnaround time, about 4 weeks until nationals. So I'll be thinking about them because, you know, Tennessee is the first state crowned this year with the schedule. So yes, Tennessee is the lucky state with the most amount of time to prepare for nationals.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
That's pretty cool. That does kind of, I guess, almost give you like, I feel like a push, like a head start.
Yeah.
Get ready for Miss USA. That's wild.
Yes.
I almost
So
want to say that feels like it's late. I know that seems weird, but I feel like February for a national pageant that starts at the end of July, it almost feels late to have your title holder crowned in February, but y'all are for March. How is it almost March? Oh my goodness.
The time has flown. The fact that I feel like I was celebrating midnight for New Year's last week, but it's been over 2 months.
Oh my goodness gracious. I swear I say the years, like the time flies every year, and I always say, oh, last year feels like it was so slow, but I think I say the same thing every year, so here we are. How early did you have all of your preparations, say your gown, your swimsuit, all of that? Are you reusing from last year? Did you go get new stuff in preparation for this year, not knowing the date? How did that work?
It's funny you say that. Yesterday, I actually got my swimsuit, my opening number, and my interview all in one. All the packages were at my front door yesterday. It was literally couldn't have worked out more perfect. So last night I was trying everything on, seeing if anything else needed to be altered. But I've had my gown in my hand since about the second week of the new year. So that's been nice to be able to walk in it and practice. But yes, everything brand new this year. Greenwood Productions, they change the required colors every year for swimsuit and opening number. So obviously gown, whatever you're choosing, same with interview, but I couldn't rewear a swimsuit this year because of the color change. But I think it's fun to switch it up, you know, don't want to get too comfortable with my same old black swimsuit every year. So this year the colors for Greenwood are gold for swimsuit and white for opening number. So very goddess themed in my opinion.
Y'all are given a swimsuit color, like everyone competes in the same swimsuit color.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. I thought so. I've done Miss Colorado USA before, and that was a free for all. The only thing that we were told was your opening number either has to be silver or black, and that was the only directive we were given. I don't think I've heard of a USA state pageant saying what color your swimsuit is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I personally like it because it makes less decisions for me, right? They make the decision for me, so it's easier on me. I just have to find a gold swimsuit. But yeah, in years past, they've given like 3 color options, think like black, pink, and red. Last year was pink or black. Yeah.
Was it hard to find a gold swimsuit?
Yes, but gratefully, I had one made by Megan Bologna. She's also a fitness coach, so definitely recommend her. I had no issues at all with ordering through her. I sent all my measurements to her. It came in great, and the quality is definitely there, and that's what you're paying for is the quality. And of course, it's custom for you, so hopefully no one else shows up with my swimsuit.
Do you ever have a concern that you're going to show up to competition and have the same gown as somebody else?
Personally, no, just because of my height, right? So I have to get something custom because of that to make sure that the dress touches the ground. But that's always fun because I like the design process and sitting down and looking at what will be my dream dress. And I've really created that this year. You know, every year you think you're wearing your dream dress and then you try something new on and it just gives you those butterfly feelings again. So I'm really excited to have my dress on the stage with all the lights this year. I'm excited.
What suggestions do you have for other contestants that might be of the taller echelon? I am 5'8", so I'm pretty in the middle and have only run into the issue of a dress being short once, and I was shocked. What suggestions do you have for the taller girlies that compete?
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of different avenues you can take, of course. There's the custom route, getting a couture with a designer. But I've also, this is actually a funny story. One of my prom dresses I wore my junior year prom. It was too short for me, but you know, I wasn't on a stage or anything. So the length, of course, was just for my personal preference. But when I was looking for teen gowns, I kept referring back to my prom dress, but I was like, I can't wear this on stage. It's too short. So what we actually did is we brought it to a seamstress, and she actually cut the bottom of the dress off and kept the bodice, because the bodice was the part I was in love with. And she sewed on a completely different bottom to the dress. So it was really like we combined two into one.
That is interesting. I have zero sewing skills, so just like thinking through that sounds really cool.
Yes, it was definitely a vision come to life, because we're like, is this possible? Can she cut this dress in half and find fabric that would make it look like it was bought this way? And we were looking at a bunch of different fabrics, and she's like, let's go with more of a silk. And when we sewed on to the top was beading. It was actually the gown I wore at Miss Georgia Teen USA 2019 when I was first runner up. So the top of that dress was my junior prom dress, and then the bottom was hand sewn on by a seamstress.
That's really cool.
Yes, it was an experience. So
In the same vein of, being worried about maybe showing up with the same dress as somebody else, as you go through competition week and even as you prepare, how do you keep yourself from comparing yourself to other contestants?
hmm I think there's multiple steps to that for me. First off, I'm that girl backstage that is, putting an AirPod in, one AirPod in, listening to her music, really in the zone. And so I don't have the time to be looking around and comparing myself. I'm in my little bubble. I'm not being antisocial, but I am like making friends with my mirror mates at the same time of being zen. Besides that, I've been really lucky actually every year. So we have roommates at Miss Tennessee and Miss Georgia within Greenwood Productions. I have a roommate every year that has been just amazing. I've done random some years. Some years I went into it knowing a girl, and we asked to room together. And so I really stay close with my roommate, and her and I just are empowering each other the entire weekend. And that distracts from, if you have any comparison syndrome. And that's something I've really enjoyed. And I think that's where the saying, like, these girls you compete with could be my bridesmaid one day. I mean, I've made some lifelong friends. I've actually gone to weddings of some of my pageant friends. So it's definitely something that makes me smile.
Do you have a game plan going into competition week? Do you kind of have everything planned out, especially for interview? Do you have kind of a game plan walking in an interview, or are you kind of a more go with the flow type?
I definitely have a game plan. When it comes to the week leading up, I do a mock interview with my coach, and then I'll review my bio sheet that we submit to the judges multiple times. And I have a list of questions that could be asked from the bio sheet. I'll look at myself in the mirror in the bathroom and run through them, or even ask one of my parents or my best friends. I'll run through questions with them. And then when it comes to the day of, that day, I will, like an hour before, I'll talk to my coach on the phone, and I call it like my warm up, right? We'll talk through some stuff, reminders of a few things. And then about 30 minutes before, I play about 2 or 3 songs that I like to listen to. One of them is Confident by Demi Lovato. And then from there, we have to sit outside the interview room. There's about 6 chairs lined up. And then when I'm in that moment, I'm really not talking to anyone. I'm sitting in my chair quietly, just not overthinking anything, but I'm just sitting there peacefully and praying and, hoping for the best. And then I walk in the room and see what happens.
With your interview prep, or like getting into that, mindset, have you been, like, do you do a lot of practice for interview leading up, or is it really just that one prep interview the week before?
So I actually had a mock interview, I think it was about 9 days ago now. And from there, I got a lot of feedback. And I'm taking all that feedback. I wrote it down, and that's something I refer back to. And when I'm answering these questions, like I said, when I'm looking in the mirror, I'll record myself, listen back. I love to say at the end of the day. That's something I'm working on. And so little things like that, when I listen back after recording myself, I write down some things to work on. And so then hopefully when I'm a week out next week and doing another mock interview, then hopefully I'll see those little tweaks made and those habits broke. I can hope, at least. And then, of course, like I said the day of, I'll talk to my coach, and really that's more just to loosen up. There's no more coaching happening at that point. It's almost more mentoring, I'd say, to make sure just I'm in the right headspace.
Have you run into any obstacles during your preparation?
I would say I was nervous about my wardrobe getting here on time. So when it was all here yesterday, I was very grateful for that because, if any of it did need to be altered, I need the time to take it to the alterations and the seamstress. But thank goodness everything fit perfect. So I'll have the next 2 weeks to sit with it. But I think besides that, I was really, I felt prepared this year because I knew I was coming back, and so it was just me waiting for them to release the dates, and then once they did, I was able to just make my decision, and from there I've just been preparing.
That definitely helps when you just kind of have that, okay, I think I have everything together and now I get to jump in. That definitely gives you a little bit more sense of calm and peace and just settled into it. But as you've gotten, moved on from last year and as you've gotten ready for this year, how have you checked in on your mental health and really your overall well-being to keep yourself in a healthy space?
Yeah, I think on a more lighthearted note, I took the hot girl walks very seriously this past year, that trend. And I love to go on a hot girl walk, put my AirPods in, or even leave it inside and just enjoy the outdoors. But I love to go on a long walk instead of being on the treadmill doing 12, 3:30, that trend too. Love that. But I like to get outside, do a hot girl walk. That's really my me time. And then, of course, on a casual note, binge watching something on Netflix is always nice. But I think for me, the past year, mentally and mental health wise, like I've grown stronger from getting second runner up last year. I think in years past, where I wasn't making top five, I kept doubting myself. But last year, getting into top five really was affirmation for me that I can do this. I need to believe in myself and just keep growing from that. And I think I've really honed in on that this past year and not, being super hypercritical of myself. We're our harshest critic. And that was hard to say, but I think just being kind to yourself.
Have you discovered anything about yourself since you've started competing?
Oh my gosh, I've gotten so much more confidence. If you would have watched me walk into the room in October of 2017, my first pageant ever, and speak about what I was passionate about and just who I was in that room, I wasn't someone that stood up straight. I was 6'4" then, I'm 6'4" now. I've grown into physically and literally the woman I am today because of pageantry. It has given me the confidence of that I am strong and I have a voice and that I want to be an advocate for others. And I think pageants is something that can do that for any girl, any walk of life, right? Especially with this age change. A 40-year-old woman can walk into that room and, find confidence in herself and who she is. There's still room for self-growth. I think I really do believe in that. Like you are still growing every day. You really don't ever hit a peak. I think learning is so important. Of course, like I said, I'm an advocate for higher education, but yeah, I think pageantry is just a room for me to find who I was at the end of the day.
I love that. I love how you can see the growth and, recognize that you went from being somebody that maybe wasn't fully embodying that 6'4" self of yourself to, really taking that on. I think that's really cool. Do you, and this is just like probably something that you get asked frequently and maybe it's annoying. Do you ever get asked, oh, did you play sports? Oh, did you do modeling? And, how have you maybe gotten over or kind of helped yourself get used to answering that question when it can get pretty old?
Yeah. So I always tell people I would be a billionaire for if I got a penny every time someone asked me, "Do you play basketball?" I I kid you not, a billionaire, not a millionaire. It happens to me every single day in a parking lot, in a grocery store, you name it, even at work. Still, I think it's something that I've had to turn into growth, like I said, right? It gets old, but if I turn into a positive and look at it that way, I think it helps me because at first, I'm not gonna lie, I would cry sometimes in my car when people would be like, "Oh, that's such a waste of height," because I never did play basketball. And people assume so much, and I just want to break those stereotypes and that you can be outside the box that a lot of people put you in. And for me, that was I don't play sports. I actually did ballet growing up, and people don't even think of that as an option. And that's true if you're shorter too, right? Any body shape, any way you look, people have preconceived notions, and I like to share that you don't have to be defined by those stereotypes, right? You're going to break free of them and be outside of that box. And I'm really proud to, like, whenever people say, "Do you play basketball?" I say no proudly, and just to watch their face as they walk away. And it's just, yeah, it's something I've lived with. And I mean, like I said, I'm proud to be 6'4", and I've grown into that.
It honestly, it seems like it'd be super cool to be 6'4". I am definitely not, but I come from a family where most of my family members are over 6 feet, so I'm the weird one where I'm not. So it's, I've seen my own family go through that, and it's just so fascinating to hear how everyone else has dealt with it and gone through life and figured out how to kind of address it. And now that, and I almost feel like it's probably a positive too for you in pageantry to have that height and have that stature and really be able to hold yourself on stage.
Mm-hmm. I love being a tall girl too. I mean, I feel like we're our own community. We always are. Whenever I see another tall girl in public, I'm always like, "Where'd you get your jeans from?" It's so hard for me to find jeans. And I just, like I said, I turn everything into a positive with it. I love to be playful. If I see another tall girl, I'm like, "Oh, we're in the same club." And I think it's something that it's a characteristic of me that I've turned into a positive.
Have you, kind of speaking of stereotypes, have you faced any stereotypes from maybe coworkers or others in your industry with being a corporate girl that competes in pageantry?
Yeah, I think a lot of my coworkers just think right away Honey Boo Boo and or toddlers and tiaras. And it's much more than that nowadays, of course, right? We are women that advocate for social issues that are close to our hearts. And it's been quite the journey explaining that, and especially in a Fortune 500 company. I work for Gallo on the marketing and sales side. And I work with a lot of people that, like I said, think of toddlers and tiaras. So explaining to them what I do and even what the preparation has been like for my state pageant has been fun because, it's making pageants relevant. All these people that didn't watch Miss USA before are now going to watch it. Even if I don't win the state title, they're going to be tuning into the pageant because I've shown them what the organization does for young women.
That's super cool, and I think it's fun to kind of hear how others in different industries have tried to and have successfully broken down the stereotypes around pageantry and really helping educate the community, because I think that's something that in the last few years has really taken off, is how do we change the perception of pageantry? Because like you said, the young women that compete, not even young, the women of all ages that compete are seriously impressive.
Mm-hmm. Right. Astronaut, an engineer, someone in the marketing field, anything, you name it. And now even with mothers competing, you could be a stay-at-home mom and compete.
And honestly, being a stay-at-home mom, I have learned is a full-time job. I'm not a mom, but my friends who are, oh my gosh, that's a whole different challenge. And it's really cool, asking others how you go about trying to break that down and not almost be rubber stamped within your organization of like, oh, she just likes to look in a mirror. Because I've had that say to me, like, oh, she competes in pageants. You must look like looking in mirrors, and it's always fun. But it's really cool to see that you have taken it as an opportunity to really not only grow yourself, but also grow a better understanding of the pageant community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an amazing opportunity for sure.
What are you most excited about over the next 2 weeks before you get to Miss Tennessee USA?
I think I'm excited to really just hone in on myself and remember, why I put in all this work. I think this is the time for me to be a little bit selfish these next 14 days and remember like all these hours that I put in the gym, in the interview room with mock interviews, with a walking coach, all of that, and put it all to work. And it's been a lot of preparation, and I'm ready to put it all on the stage.
I'm very excited to support you as you get ready and as you compete for Miss Tennessee USA. So I will happily be keeping an eye on all the socials as it comes around, and I'll be cheering you on. What can we do? What can others do? What can people that are watching do to support you as you compete for Miss Tennessee USA?
Yeah, I will be posting on my Instagram my journey the next few weeks and the weekend of the pageant. So I will be checking in on Thursday, March 7th for my interview portion of the competition that afternoon around 4 p.m. I'll be going into the interview room. So just any thoughts and prayers for me that day, you know, with interview being, in my opinion, the most important part of the pageant, you know, right off the bat, that's the first thing I'll be doing for the weekend. So just give me your thoughts, check in with me on Instagram. I love any DMs I get. I think it's so encouraging, the positivity I receive from people. Some people I haven't even met too, right? Obviously we're e-meeting virtually. I just love all the positivity that is shared through this experience. It really is uplifting.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up, but we're going to play a quick game of this or that. Are you ready?
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Dress or jumpsuit?
Ooh, dress.
Sneakers or stilettos?
Stilettos.
Do you have a favorite pair of stilettos?
Yes. I treated myself to a pair of red bottoms actually, and I'll be wearing them with my interview suit. So they're my power heel.
I love it. All right. Underdressed or overdressed?
Overdressed.
Phone call or text message?
Phone call.
Really?
I'm a bad texter, and people think I'm very serious because I use a lot of punctuation in my text, and I think it's always misconstrued that I'm being serious, but that's just how I talk via text. So I prefer for someone to hear the inflection of my voice on the phone.
That's fair. Do you work in the marketing side of the marketing and sales department?
Yes.
Yeah. So you're very focused on correct grammar in your job.
Yes.
That makes total sense because that's me as well. I'm like, I'm going to make sure I have a correct period and the semicolon, and people are like, why? I'm like, that's how I function. Vintage or modern fashion?
Vintage.
Swimsuit or evening gown?
Swimsuit.
Now I have to ask about the vintage though. Do you have a favorite vintage item that you found?
Oh, um, honestly, there's this store in Dallas, Texas. I follow them on Facebook. It's called the Clothes Horse Anonymous, and people bring in consigned items. And I found the most amazing things on there. Off the top of my head, I can't name a favorite, but there were these pair of Prada loafers I was looking at the other day that were like from 2009 that they posted on the Facebook group. They weren't my size, but there's so many good finds. So Clothes Horse, it's in Dallas, Texas.
My credit card just got so mad at me because now I'm going there. All right. Red lipstick or nude lipstick?
Nude.
Sash or crown?
Crown.
All right. And this one is very pertinent to USA girlies. Butt glue or double-sided tape?
Butt glue. More efficient.
So much more efficient. All you have to do, baby wipe, you're good.
Yep.
Thank you so incredibly much for taking the time to chat with me today. Where can everyone follow you on social media to support you as you go on to Miss Tennessee USA?
Yes, y'all can follow me at, my handle is CHRISTELL 7908 Christell. That's how you say my name. And yeah, I'll be posting on my stories and everything there.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to support you, and I can't wait to see how you do in 2 weeks.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.
All right, y'all have a great rest of your day. Bye, y'all.